Hey everybody, welcome to the OEM Repair Show. We are grateful that you are back for the second week. Quick shout out to all the companies that have made this show possible. You know, guys, when we started this show, we were looking at ticket sales and trying to get it all together, and we've had some great companies come forward that are kind of helping make this possible right now so we can get you guys flown in here and hang out together for a couple of days here in Arkansas. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to cover this week for Mazda. I'm kind of excited about Mazda, guys, because a lot of people, when I announced we were going to have a Mazda show, they were like, why a Mazda show? But it is a top selling.
They make cars.
They do make cars.
Right.
Yeah, so
they do sell them.
Yeah, there's a few out there.
They do get in collisions. You see like 3 or 4 on the road.
Yeah, it's a top selling car. So there are a lot of them in the collision repair centers across North America. And I think we may be, not necessarily doing everything the right way. So we're going to hit on some stuff today that I think is going to help a lot of shops. So just like last month when we talked to you, there are 3 sources for finding Mazda repair information out there. Now we're going to break it down to what we believe is necessarily available free, which is a great help to adjusters, independent adjusters, insurance companies, or even some of you small shop estimators that maybe the owner doesn't quite want to get there yet with some subscriptions to whatever. But there are your estimating systems that have repair information available to you. There are third-party sites such as, Jason, I guess iCar, you guys would classify as a third-party site in a way, or All Data or some of the others out there. And then obviously what we're going to focus mostly on is the OE website. We do believe that is the best source of information for any
place to get all the information, not a watered-down version of it.
Or the most up-to-date.
Yeah, most up-to-date.
I think we saw something this week from a shop that was posting something around General Motors, and what was available on the third-party sites did not match what General Motors had out. And so just within the last month, GM had made an update to some repair procedures. So, Jason, let's start out with the RTS, what you guys have to offer.
Yeah, so we don't have a ton of information from Mazda on the RTS website. We're adding more content all the time. We are still certainly getting Ask iCar questions. We've got all our matrices, all of our search engines. Certainly have a Mazda covered in there as well. But again, we've got some good information on Mazda on the website. We've got links out to the vehicle manufacturer website, to the collision repair website. We've got a position statement posted there, some of our top tech inquiries as well. And certainly, again, the partial part replacement and the calibration matrix, we're currently working on getting that updated to include Mazda.
Yeah.
So we got some good information out there, just not as much as some other vehicle manufacturers.
It depends on what they produce to you or they have out there, because your research team can only research what's there. And it's the manufacturer that has to produce more for us.
We were talking last night about some stats and stuff that you have, and you've had roughly over 3,700 inquiries so far on Mazda repair procedures?
Yep. Yeah, quite a few hits on the Ask iCar searches. So when people call and say, is there a procedure for this on a Mazda 3 or a Mazda 6 or CX-9 or whatever the vehicle is, we got a lot of hits on that. And then we track those and we start to see trends. Then we develop collision repair news articles related to that, because obviously we got a couple people calling. Chances are there's several around the country that had the same question, so we try to highlight those in some articles, which again I think we got some information on today.
And keep them there in that database. So kind of like what Danny was saying last week, and we do miss Danny's not here with us this week. I think he's freezing in Colorado somewhere.
Light sprinkle of 30 feet of snow.
Light sprinkle. He's digging it out. But just like the DEG benefits from all the inquiries that you make there, and every shop then gets to have the benefit of having a resolution. When you actually call into the RTS portal and file either a link pinning or a question or whatever, cataloging that really helps all repairs.
Absolutely.
It also helps you have conversations with the OEs, correct?
It does, yeah. So as we compile that information, if we start to see those trends again, we can go back to the vehicle manufacturer through our OEM linking pin mechanism and say, hey, we're starting to notice this trend. Is there a variation of this repair procedure that we can do? Is there something different that we can do? Maybe there's a procedure that doesn't exist? We can raise that to them, escalate that to them, and hopefully get a repair procedure. And some of those can happen quite quickly. We had a recent Nissan one that we submitted that happened very quickly for a new sectioning option. Some of them take a little bit longer if they've got to go back to Japan for Mazda, for example. If they need to go back to the engineers in Japan for an answer on that, they may take a little bit more time. So people need to be a little bit patient from time to time, but the OEs have been very responsive on that.
Yeah. That's great. So instead of maybe going to Facebook and posting our questions on Facebook, maybe we'll just take them straight to Jason.
Oh, what? It's not going to do an opinion poll?
How do I put this part on? All right, so Jason, we'll touch a little bit on the details inside the site.
Yeah.
So, like last month with Toyota, same thing applies here. Back in my insurer days, I didn't have a lot of resources. I mean, if I'd have gone to the VP of claims and said, hey, I want OE access or I want repair procedure access for every estimator in the company, when you have 900 estimators, you get laughed at pretty heavily with that kind of request. So then it became our job to try to hunt and peck and find whatever we could to try to be better or more informed when we wrote an estimate. And iCar was a great resource back then. It was a newsletter called The Advantage.
Yep,
that we got and we would save. But right now, if I go into the RTS portal and I navigate myself to the Mazda section, there is what we call, you have Mazda iCar News, and you've really gone ahead and kind of corralled, so I don't have to hunt for every Mazda article that's ever been out there. You put it on one
link,
place for me.
and the nice thing about those as well is the collision repair news articles are open to everybody, so there's no login required, there's no subscription required. Every article that we publish is open to the general public. And again, as we see trends and as we learn things, we stumble across a repair procedure in a manual, like, oh, that's interesting. We think other people might be interested in that. We'll develop an article around that and try to share it.
Yeah.
And one thing that's really great about the RTS website when it comes to the OEs, again, we don't have licensing agreements to duplicate all the information. We want you to go to the live site to get the most up-to-date information. But what we've done is we've invested a lot of our time and resources into getting you put in the right direction. So when you've got that question on, is there a sectioning procedure, or is what's required from a calibration standpoint, we can help guide you there a lot more quickly rather than you getting a subscription, logging in, trying to find the information, maybe not even finding what you're looking for. We can let you know, hey, if you go here, you will find the procedure you're looking for, or there's not a procedure available for this particular repair.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the articles that you guys do, because you have the links, and so I don't even have to leave the article to click where I need to go.
Yep.
So it saves me navigation time. It also lets me know if I'm going to pay for, if I'm a shop, for instance, I'm going to pay for day research, and we'll talk a little bit in the sectioning procedures later. That tells me right away whether it's worth the day to get in there and find it. Nothing worse than paying, well, I guess there's a lot worse, but you pay 20 bucks, you get in there and then you can't find what you need after you spent the money or whatever. So just a couple of quick top articles that you guys have had so far.
Yeah, so you mentioned the iCar Advantage. So we had originally, as that was winding down, we were starting to ramp up the collision repair news article. When Mazda came out with their IE loop system, we published an article on that, and that's been our most popular Mazda collision repair news article. 13,000 hits on that article alone. So it's of interest to people. They want to know how the system works, and they want to know some of the collision repair considerations, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, that's been quite popular, and as well as some of our, we've got a kind of a series that we've kind of coined internally, WhatSa. So what's a lot of vehicle they don't call the same part the same thing in every manual. So we'll do articles on with regard to Mazda, what's a what do they call their lower rail? What does Toyota call their lower rail? So that when you're going across these terms, you know exactly what they're talking about. So just a small series.
Yeah, you need a language dictionary to read some of these things.
Especially suspension parts. They really go crazy with that. What's a trailing arm versus a lower control arm versus somebody? So really, it can drive you up a wall when you try and read this repair information. And even there's a big difference between the Asians, the Germans, and even the Americans on some of the stuff. And a lot of times it's translation. We found something the other day, and we'll talk about later with it. That was translation. We had to figure it out.
That was actually a scary translation. But a couple of the top articles, we are going to get back to the IE loop, because what I find interesting in that is that system's been around since 2014, and I bet we're going to surprise some people today with some of the stuff we're going to talk about. And then sectioning procedures. So the CX-9 came out, new vehicle, new designs, and then right away you guys had an article for us letting us know the sectioning procedures were there and what was going to happen. And sometimes you guys get information and help us long before the estimating systems catch up to what's out there, so we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But also in there, you guys have the partial panel sectioning guidelines, and it's not the procedures. I want to make sure that people don't misunderstand that. But very quickly, you've filtered through all the noise, and you're letting me know if or if not something out there exists on these cars.
Yeah, so we go through the vehicle maker body repair information for all these vehicles that are coming out. We've got some staff doing that right now. I bet you Kylie's back in Appleton right now doing some research on that, so shout out to her for doing that, for all her great work. But again, going through the body repair manuals and identifying, is there a section procedure for the lower rail, for the side aperture, for the rear rail, trunk floor? Are there multiple sectioning locations? Or if there's not a sectioning procedure, is there a partial part replacement at a factory seam? So a lot of vehicle manufacturers now, so like a lot of lower rails, so rather than having to put the entire lower rail in, there may not be a sectioning procedure, but there'll often be a factory seam near the cowl that you can just drill at the spot welds there and just put in a portion of the rail, not have to get into the floor. So we try to identify, again, is a section procedure, are there multiple section procedures, or is it a partial part replacement, or are there no procedures available for it, which in that case means you're going to be putting the entire
whole part's
part
going in, yeah. And you guys do a great job of, after I find my vehicle, if there is something there, of course it's hyperlinked, I click into it, and then very quickly you guys break out the different sections of the vehicle, tell me what's there, and I know right away, as an estimator, whether it's possible.
Yep.
And maybe if I'm an insurance estimator or a field appraiser or whatever, then I work with the shop to have them access the procedures to make sure I'm accurate. Or right away, if I'm an estimator in a shop, I know I've got something to do. So kudos the way you guys put it together.
Thank
It's
you.
all color coded. I love it a lot. Makes my life easier. And then position statements. So you've got the Mazda position statements on there. In fact, you're in the middle of an update because Mazda just gave us a new one.
Yep.
Finally. They don't have a whole lot. How many position statements does Mazda have, Larry?
They have 2, and I'm very happy for it. I wish more companies wouldn't have position statements. Unless a position statement really should be utilized for a big change across multiple vehicles that needs to be known, that we're not going to rewrite the whole repair manual. Or a new procedure came out, like you guys sent into Nissan. Nissan could have a position statement on this type of procedure because it just came out, it's an update, and we're just going to add this as an appendix to the manual already. Or like Honda came out with that page on their new welding and sectioning on outer panels only, where, depending on the thickness of the, how many layers of material are there. So those are good position statements. Putting a position statement on that you should torque wheels when it's already in the manual is redundancy. It's almost like a pacifier to shut everybody up. And yeah, they have their position statement on, there should be a wheel position statement because not a lot of companies put in there that you shouldn't be refurbishing them. So yes, I understand that. I understand genuine parts, but all manufacturers say that. That's why they're all putting them out. And the pre-repair and post-repair scanning, that seems to be the new hot topic thing, but most of the German companies aren't putting anything out. I mean, I know Mercedes-Benz did, but like Audi, Porsche, they don't bother because it's already in the repair information.
Yeah.
That tells you what to do, and that's the issue that we look at this as a crutch. Like it's something that has to be there to help us out. It's almost like any one of the Asian companies putting out a position statement. We recommend only high-test gas, which is what they tell you to put in the car anyway. So it becomes a little bit of redundancy. So I'm almost happy that there's only 2 versus a lot, because now it tells you should really read your manual and you should really understand what the repair procedures are and what the requirements are on the mechanical, electrical side. Really is really where you want to look for this.
And we saw that yesterday as we were going through some of the ADAS information, where one of the first steps is putting the scan tool on and looking for codes and making sure that you've got all clear codes
And most of the
before you do
mechanical
the
stuff
calibration.
does that.
Right.
And that's what guys don't realize. This is why I always try and stress it in my classes, the classes we teach. I know iCar talks about it all the time. You have to scan. You have to pre-measure, pre-repair measure a car to know what's there and what's not there, because not always gaps will always tell you that. Well, same thing here. You have to scan through the car like a bioscan that your computer expert comes in to figure out why is my computer lagging or something wrong with it. And not always is it shut it off, start it again. You got to check these things. Not a light will set up, and every procedure on the mechanical side will tell you to scan and see what's going on with the car.
Yeah, it's really a requirement. So just this year, January 3rd, actually Mazda put out a position statement on scanning. I think they did it as not I want to say as a me too, but after a lot of pressure from a lot of repairers, maybe even a lot of insurers as well. So they do now have a scanning position statement. It is available. It's on, we talked about it coming to the iCar site. Y'all got to get it updated. It is available on the OE Connection, and it's also available on the Mazda site. And then their only other position statement is about parts. I like that too, Larry. One of the things that frustrated me the most on the insurer side, and I'll put that hat on, was when I would walk into a shop and they would go, but I have to, and I'd go, why? And they go, because we have a position statement. I'd go, no, but why? So if you can't tell me the why, then the position statement scares me more than anything. I mean, I'm almost scared for you to fix the car. So if you can't explain why the OE has this procedure and how it affects the car that's in your stall and what needs to be done to it, just holding a position statement out there is really on the same level as the adjuster that says, but I don't want to pay for it because it says recommended or whatever. So.
Well, then we talk about this all the time, and I don't have a law degree on my wall to say it, although I've been saying it for the last 20 years, but for some reason, until somebody actually has a law degree, it doesn't matter. And it was said in the Todd Tracy case, it was said in 15 different cases with Erica Eversman that I've worked with. Recommend by the manufacturer is a requirement, okay? Plain and simple. And until people start to realize that, you're still going to have this back and forth arguing and bumping of heads, and the body shops have to realize it's not my problem. It's the consumer's problem. I'm just trying to try and help them get paid what they, what needs to get paid for. If not, it's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, but as the repairer touching the car, you need to have the education and the knowledge to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's what the OE website does.
But that takes reading.
Yeah, I got to read.
Nobody wants to read.
Yeah.
Everyone wants pictures.
Yeah. So speaking of reading.
And we had trouble yesterday getting on this.
We did.
Yes.
So one of the things I love about the way we do this show is we don't spend months and months and months. I guess I shouldn't tell people. We don't spend months and months and months preparing for it. We sit down a couple of days before the show as a team and start thinking about really what we're going to talk about.
It was like 3 hours and she kept beating me. No, you're not drinking. No. You can't have cigars until you do this.
No, the hitting you was just for fun.
Oh.
But no, we sit down as a team and try to find the things that we want to talk about. We each come to the table with different things that we've experienced over the course of the last several years around each brand. And then we go to dig in and find the information ourselves, and we figure what we're struggling with probably is what everybody else is struggling with as well.
Well, sometimes when we can come up with the answers on certain pages in Facebook, or when one of the guys that we know or girls that we know call us up and ask us, I'm on the site, what do I do? And you know what, you try and remember back to what you went through with it. And sometimes it's a stupid capital letter. I know yesterday I had some issues with, I don't know why, but I had issues with the email address was too long.
Yeah.
We had to get a shorter email address, which could be a problem. And then, sometimes you do this. Confirm your password. You can't see it. And sometimes you make a mistake. You hit the wrong key. Because none of us have really studied typing. I've gotten better over the years, but I'm not a real typist, So, and you can't see what you have. You've got a bunch of dots. And that's what kept causing the issue.
Yeah.
My phone number also, I found when they wanted your phone number, you can't just put it straight across and automatically it paginates the way it's supposed to be. You have to put in your 3-digit area code, a hyphen or a minus sign, then your next 3 digits, hyphen, minus sign, and then your last 4 digits. I tried first with the open parentheses and closed, and that didn't work either. So I finally figured out it had to. So they should really show you the format that they want so that you know what you're doing with it.
Yeah. So like I said, what was really interesting is some people have asked, are you going to get the OEs to come on the show? A couple of them, some of the OEs are going to come on and join us, but we really this is just real shop talk. This is just how our real life works. And in the real world, the OE's not sitting next to you going, click here.
Right.
So on the Mazda website, so they do have collision repair information available.
They get some good information,
and they've
too.
got some great, I was really blown away by their diagrams. I really like how everybody's kind of stepped that up over the last couple of years. But on the Mazda website, which you can link to through the RTS portal.
Right.
So if you go to rts.icar.com, click
Probably
on
the easiest
OEM
way to get
information, and then click on the Mazda grill emblem when it selects up there, and then you can click collision repair information from Mazda. It'll take you right there to this website. And it's got a daily rate, so there are 3 different ways I can get on. I can get on daily, monthly, or yearly.
And yearly's the cheapest. It's $4.10.
Yeah, $4.10.
Which goes back to, I think the last show we talked about was the same thing. It was around $4.15 or something like that. So, for $4.15 a day, and once again, I said this the last time, if you don't see a lot of Mazdas, then maybe you buy it for the day, and you attach it to the repair bill. And the bigger thing is not so much the $20 for the day, it's the 2-3 hours sometimes that you have to spend searching through how to replace a windshield, which we'll talk about later, and all the other crap that goes along with it when you're trying to do it, because you also have to, and what's nice is when you get into the actual procedures under the VIN, because a lot of these companies ask for the VIN to make it easier, you can actually see the build sheet, so you know what the car has in it. You don't have to call the dealer and find out, well, does it have lane departure, does it have lane keep, does it have Distronic cruise control or distance control? You know this already because you can see the build sheet on it. Now that you see the build sheet and what it comes with, now you know what to look up. And that's the big thing. And for $4.10, if you get 5 of these in a month, it's cheaper to buy it for the entire year, and it's $4.10 a month for as many cars as you get in.
Yep. And as we dig in here
A day,
little
excuse
bit,
me, yeah.
as we dig in a little deeper, we're going to understand why it's so important to have Mazda repair information.
Yes, which is no different than anybody else's information.
Yeah, but they do like to vary. So same year, but different models, completely
And
different procedures on
we
the
really
exact
found
same
with this
parts.
versus what we saw with some of the other manufacturers, we've looked up where basically all their procedures are the same for their cars. We found some really big differences, and we'll talk later about their procedures on rails, let's say, are very, very different with the same manufacturer.
Like Larry mentioned, if you're trying to decide whether you buy this or you're doing the monthly or the daily, just very simply go back over the last couple of years of your shop's work, do a quick search of your locked and uploaded estimates, sort them by manufacturer, and see how many a year of these vehicles or types that you're fixing. And that's a really great way of narrowing into what's selling in your market and what customers are coming to you and what OEM sites you may need to want to have access to and what may be better off with a third-party access for that. So 3 ways to get in there. Now, once you're in there, and we borrowed Danielle's log on?
Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. So hopefully things are well in Wisconsin. But we borrowed Danielle's login and got in. So as soon as you're in there, Jason, where am I going?
Yeah, so the first place we're going to go is at the top left is where the actual electronic service information is. So one thing that's challenging with the websites between OEs is none of them are alike, and they call different things, and they've got different navigation. So actually, and I haven't spent a lot of time in Mazda, so I went to the RTS website, and I looked at our downloadable, printable directions on how to find the information.
Or the videos. You've got some great how-to videos too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So better give Scott props for that. So thank you for that,
Thanks,
Scott.
Scott.
So you click on the electronic service information at the top left. That'll bring you to kind of the main page. For now, you put the vehicle information in there to start looking for what you're looking for. And again, from this page, we got 3 different tabs. We got a keyword search, a search by customer concerns, or a view content. We want to select the View Content tab. That's where we're going to find the information for our vehicles, and then we can either put the VIN in there, as you mentioned, or we can put the make, or the model, and the year of it, and it'll pull up the repair information. And then on the left-hand side of it, when we navigate that, we'll see body shop manuals, body and accessories, and then we want to click on the body structure, and that's where we're going to get our material identification. That's where we're going to get all of our sectioning information, and then towards the bottom is where it says workshop manuals. That's where we're going to find the ADAS information on IE loop, so more of the service type information. But the body repair information is towards the top in that, and it's clearly named. And again, they've got great information in there, including their material identification.
Yep.
They've got the structure of the vehicle called all with all the different types of steels that are used on it. A lot of 980 we were seeing yesterday.
So a lot of 980 and all the spots that we expected it to be in. They throw in some 750 megapascal, which is above the repairable type material, but you could still cut it in many different ways versus the 980, which you're not going to be able to cut that easily. So it's kind of set up like a lot of the other Japanese cars.
Right.
You know, when you look at it in this fashion, it's similar, not exactly the same, but it's similar. And you can see a lot of manufacturers have realized through R&D and the crash testing and stuff, this is where this strong stuff needs to be. This is where this kind of really strong stuff belongs, and then this is where this weaker stuff belongs to absorb some of that energy to keep the occupant safe. And you know, basically this blued areas here, you can see with any one of the other cars, that's where all the structural stuff's going to be that is usually not repairable.
Right. So here's another one of my tricks and cheats that I used to do. So if you don't have access all the time, but you want to be able to go on, maybe log on once and access some information that's going to help you make repair decisions, replace decisions throughout every car that you estimate, well, this information on the body structure is one of the most critical pieces that you're going to need, because as we have available to us for my car, as we get to different tensile strengths on steel, we know exactly what we can and can't do. So when I hit that 600 and up, and we say that's obviously non-repairable, that also kind of means I can't straighten that either, right? So frame damage to components, or kinks or bends, or if I have a B-pillar that's maybe pushed in a little bit from a side impact, if I know what the sheet metal is or what the code is, then I would know if it's 600 and above, that's cutting out and getting changed.
Well, it's very important, especially on lower front rails, because a lot of the companies now, and this is a general statement, the first 15 inches, let's say, are very sacrificial in a way. It's not repairable, and yet we've seen plenty of real body men bend this stuff back into shape. And it's usually... Arthur. I really wish I could say only Arthur, but oh God, what we see. the crush initiator on that one car that we saw recently. They're meant to crush, and they're meant to be sacrificial and get changed. And a lot of companies have now come up with some sort of short sectioning. The problem now comes in between that short sectioning and someplace around the strut tower, either the middle of it or behind it or whatever. Do they have a sectioning procedure there? If not, like you said before, I'm going with the whole rail. The bigger issue is, and this is how I like to try and look, I look more at the engineering aspect of it and the metallurgical properties. If you have a bend at the front of the rail or a sway, it may be repairable. But you get towards the back of it, you get a sway back there because the rail goes from like a 400, 500, maybe a 560, 580, 590, and then in the middle it's like 600, and then towards the back it's 780, and the 780 is what damaged. You're not repairing that because as you go and try and sway, swing that sway back, or try and pull it or structurally realign it, it's going to start popping, crackling. You're going to hear all sorts of stuff, and it's going to swing back. And if you try and over pull it, what's going to happen is it'll probably rip off the firewall, because the firewall is probably only 280 or 300 megapascal, because it doesn't need to be that strong. So
we never see that damage when we pull it in.
Well, yeah, you're not, and that's why you got to really look at this as a frame tech, a damage assessor, and really say, no, at the front, I'm just going to check. A lot of these cars nowadays, it's not a lot of pulling. It's a lot of setup, it's a lot of measuring, and usually it's just chop and change in many cases. Sometimes I see shops pulling cars that, what are you pulling it for? You're changing the whole rail.
Pull to replace. And
Yeah, sometimes we see shops with 3 chains wrapped around the walls and going through them, and we're like,
what
the hell are you pulling? But if I ever had a cheat, that was one of my go-to, because I didn't have a lot of information. Let's face it, State Farm wasn't going to give me OE access to repair procedures. But I knew that when cars hit a certain tensile strength, that if that was pushed in, there was no adding setup, measure, and pull time on the estimate. We were putting posts in.
It helps,
we were putting
it helps develop that repair plan.
A really fast place for a lot of the insurance personnel to go find if they don't have access to it. You go to boronextrication.org, and they have a lot of these pictures for the fire departments, the volunteers really, and a lot of the municipalities, city fire departments and stuff that are paid. And it shows them where they can't cut with the, with conventional tools. That also works for us. Where they can't cut with conventional tools is where we have stuff that can't usually be replaced or repaired, and that could help you out also, because there's some articles in there that they just transfer over, so that could be a help too, and that's free. That site.
So I said that's one of my best cheats. I like those diagrams. I like how it lists it out. It helps you when you're estimating, because you can match up the part that you think you're wanting to click on with whatever that part in the diagram is. A little bit. I used to use the Boron site all the time, but these sites give me a lot more detail, which it's worth the $20 to go in there and download all the makes and models that I think I'm going to run into. Now, one thing about Mazda also, they don't have a lot of position statements. They don't have a lot of general repair procedures.
Or tools.
Or tooling. So last month when we talked about Toyota had a list of about 6 things that was, do not ever do these to our vehicles, and then another 6 things that was always do these to our vehicles.
And they had a listing of tools and equipment that they wanted, a lot of information on that, but they also have a very large collision repair program versus many other manufacturers that don't. And I noticed from my own research is that usually if they have a collision repair program, a manager in charge of it, and there's some sort of outside training program, they usually have a tool listing and requirements for a lot of stuff. Some of the other companies just take it as, well, you should know better.
But for Mazda, basically, if I want to fix Mazdas and I want to be a collision repair center and I want to follow procedures, there's just a couple of things that Mazda says when it comes to their vehicles I need to have, right? I need to use weld-through primer. Proper weld-through primer, a zinc-rich weld-through primer.
Yes.
But they do not call out a brand, so there's no specific brand for Mazda that you need to use. And I'm going to do some spot welding, and I'm going to do from MIG welding. No brazing.
No MIG brazing, no aluminum.
No aluminum?
No, just all MIG welding. Everything with them is a MIG weld. And from what we saw with the procedures that we'll talk a little bit later about is we really feel mostly they want MIG plug welds where you can't reach with the arms of the resistance welder, or it's just too hard to get in there, or wherever you cut, with a saw blade or something.
No universal call out for adhesive bonding like we have with Chrysler. So really there's not a whole lot of general overarching procedures. Now what that means is that you're going to want to have to, you're not going to want it, you're going to need to look up every vehicle each and every time. And let's start with the CX-9 roof panel. What's up with that roof, Jason?
Yeah, so we found this quite interesting. So on the CX-9 roof, what was it, like 109 spot
Yeah,
welds in the factory
109 stuck in my head
that
because you mentioned
have to
you
drill
actually
out.
sat there and you counted all the dots.
That's right.
Which
And-
they're like the Germans. What we found with them is what you see there on the screen is how many they are and where they're being put, versus some other companies just show you like a little loop of what's there. It's like the German companies that you can actually see where they're actually at.
They're very specific on the number that they want. So they want, I believe, 22 spot welds along the windshield pinch weld flange. They want 22 plug welds along the side of the roof panel. And then in the back, we've got a combination of plug welds and spot welds. So, like nine spot welds in the middle of the flange, and then 11 on either side plug welds on top of it. So again, very specific to how many plug welds, how many spot welds, the location of it, and so you can't just put the entire roof on with spot welds or just plug welds.
Right.
You need to follow the
And the
procedure.
roof bows across aren't, you would assume it's adhesive bonding, or sound dampening material. It's not. It's regular just seam sealer.
sealer with some
That they
plug
won't pull
welds.
out. And once again, they just say seam sealer. And they do have, where we found a little ambiguity in, I guess, the translation, there is some sound dampening pads that are put in there that doesn't sound exactly the same way when they translated it.
What was that translation again?
Dumpling, I believe.
Dumping pans.
Dumping pans.
Dumping
Dumping
pans.
pans.
And the square, so that you know, the reason we put that up there, the square is universal for Mazda as their mag plug welds, and the round circle is their resistance welds or squeeze type resistant spot welding. So that does help out. There is a legend inside their repair information on how to do it, just like Toyota had last month. And this will really help you go through each one. But this is why you have to know the hieroglyphics of each company, because each company is different.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
this is a prime example of this roof is going to come off and it's going to go back on with a procedure that looks a whole lot different than what it was made at the manufacturer.
Yep.
And it's going to have seam sealer, not adhesive at all. But I have got to access those procedures.
And if you don't have a resistance welder, you
Don't touch the car.
can't put this roof panel on.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You have to have a resistance welder. You can't just mag
substitute.
plug weld everything.
Yeah, so they're very there is a specific requirement, and it does not say in here that you can substitute.
Right.
So substitute spot welds for whatever.
And then, you know what, they're very ambiguous. A lot of these companies, especially the Asian companies, they'll show you here's spot welds, here's the resistance welds, and here's the procedure. But they do very little writing on it. So you know what? There's no ambiguity to it. This is what goes there. You do something different, it's on you.
Yeah.
You know?
And one of the things here, obviously, spot welding for reach makes a big difference. But when you're doing anything that's in the, you know, what Honda likes to call the D ring, right, the life ring. So last week at the Verifax Symposium, Honda, which obviously Mazda show, but anyway, Honda stood up and very specifically addressed this procedure and type procedure and why they have spot welds in certain places and they don't allow MIG welding, and it's because of that substrate. So deep under there, when that substrate gets above 600, you can't MIG weld. If you do, you take that panel and you turn it into about 200. It's brittle popcorn at that, you know, point. And
It
if the
becomes
next-
so strong it becomes weak, which a lot of people have a hard understanding of it, but it becomes heat treated to the point that it's so strong it becomes even more brittle than what it is,
Yeah.
and that's the problem.
Yeah, if you try to substitute a MIG weld where there's a spot weld in this procedure, you're going to hurt somebody. So Mazda doesn't sell welders. They make no profit on that. They don't even give a brand or a name or a recommendation, but they do say that has to be spot welded, and there is a reason for it. So on that same car, that CX-9 out there, they have a pretty specific procedure for that front frame rail.
Yeah, so another thing, that, again, making sure that you're following the procedure for the particular vehicle, because we've got a dramatic difference here in two different vehicles, both very popular vehicles. So on the CX-9, we're using an open butt joint to replace that front, that sectioning joint on the lower rail. And then as we jump over to the Mazda 6, very similar kind of cut location, kind of similar,
Looks
very
alike.
similar.
Yeah.
However, for this one, we're going to be using the damaged part that we took off and building some inserts. So we're not just using a like a 50 millimeter backing plate that some vehicle manufacturers would recommend. We're not just using an open butt joint like on Toyota or on the CX-9.
Well, we're not cutting a section piece of unused material, cutting that in half, welding it back together, and it fits in there perfectly. These are strips that we're making, and they're not the same size strips.
No, we got one that's like around 3 inches, one that's around
Yeah.
4 inches. They're very specific.
They're different
on the
sizes and
length.
different widths on what you're using here. And you really got a lot of pre-planning to do with this, all of which I'll channel Dan.
Give me some Danny. Yeah.
Not included.
There you go, Danny.
Danny got his not included.
Danny, we need to get if he's not going to make it on another show, I just need to have a Danny here that I hit a button and he goes, no.
No, it is not included. And you know, you got a lot of planning here. You got a lot of measurements here. It's not just cut strips to make them fit. These are very specific
not 1 hour
measurements.
sleeve.
No,
I'll
be honest with you. If I had a post-repair inspection or a quality repair assessment that there was an issue with, or I'm working with the engineer and we got a court case, and I cut this rail apart, and this is how crazy it gets sometimes, we'll measure out these strips. If they're not the right length and width, it's on you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to become a problem. This is why, you know, we talked about this yesterday. You have to read these procedures. And this is why we put this here, because Jason and I found a huge difference on two similar cars, some similar procedures, but you know, different things on the same, you know, model line.
And that's what's so imperative with Mazda and why we're researching every car, because if I had a CX-9 in last week and it was just that open butt, and then now the Mazda 6 comes in this week, and I go, oh, never mind, I know how Mazda wants the rails done.
And these are both 2017s.
Yeah, they're both 2017 models, so same year, but just different models within the same brand will have drastically different procedures. So we can't make any assumptions.
Nope.
What you did on last week doesn't apply to this week. Not only even on the same make, because they could change it up there. So we definitely want to make sure that we have driven home the point to research procedures on the Mazda. Now, we could spend hours on the Mazda website pulling up different cars, pulling up procedures for everything from rockers to quarters to rails to roofs. And we're going to find a different procedure for every time. This is what we discovered yesterday. So we always recommend that you get on there and play with the website. So if you do sign up with the annual account or you sign up for a month, you're going to have to dedicate some time to spending, you know, maybe it's a night or a weekend, clicking around and finding the information you need so you can get used to navigating it. But one of the things I wanted to spend more time on in this episode than we spent with Toyota, because I think Toyota had done a really good job over the last couple of years of talking and educating the industry about a lot of their technology. Not so much with Mazda. So, Jason, we're going to go back to that IE loop that we talked about in 2014 that had come out. So this isn't anything new. This is not a brand spanking technological development from Mazda on the 2018 models. This is about a 4-year-old piece of technology. Talk to me about IE loop.
Yes, the IE loop is kind of uses the regenerative braking to store some of that energy and power the accessories. To put a little stress on the other parts of the vehicle. So when you take your foot off the gas, as long as you don't have the clutch in, if you got a manual, so you take the foot off the gas, through that regenerative braking, it's storing energy in this IE loop capacitor, which is in the front left part of the vehicle.
It's fantastic. I mean, because that never gets hit.
That's
a great place to put it.
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to. I mean, from a collision repair standpoint, what's important to know is that it's there, and that you need to be safe around it, because again, it's got that energy in there, and there's some very strict warnings about electrocution and making sure that you disable the capacitor properly, that you discharge the capacitor before disposing of it.
Boss, shove it right in the middle of it.
Just
right here. Just short it out. Don't do that.
And so there's even for part of the discharge, the discharge procedure as well. There's the safety data sheets right there as well, because you got the chemicals in there, the materials that are in there. So you've got very stringent information on what you need to do to make sure that you don't hurt yourself.
Or
don't
your
inhale
coworker.
it, don't ingest it. Right?
Yeah. The safety data sheet was very entertaining because it was like, keep the victim. And I thought, victim? What?
Victim.
What?
Yeah, you're not even the guy who's working on the car. You're already a victim, because if you're reading this, you're already near death.
Keep the victim quiet and warm. I was like, oh my God!
Yeah. If you inhale it, keep the victim quiet.
Get a priest there right away. Read last rites.
The things you have to think about. But this is in a prominently impacted part of the car. Let's think about it. If I'm going to rear end somebody, what's usually the first thing someone tries to do? They try to cut it to the right real quick, and so that corner is like probably the most hit corner ever in collision repair. So a couple things about it. Mazda also says if the canister is dropped, it may not be usable. So
you can't lay it on its side.
Yeah, it cannot lay on its side. So if you are going to disconnect it and store it, you have to store it very specifically in certain situations. By the way, it's not included. Before you can mess with this system, you must disconnect the battery.
Oh boy.
First thing you do is disable the battery, which again we follow some other information on now what the implications of disconnecting the battery are. We then need to disconnect. There's a service plug very similar to hybrid vehicles. So we've got a service plug that we're going to want to disengage to make sure that we kind of have shut the system down. And then they've got a very specific process for how to remove the
In a
the
specific,
pieces.
so that process is there's a specific order, and if I don't disconnect things in that order, I may damage the capacitor.
Absolutely.
What, grabbing a Sawzall and using that to take it out is not the right
Just
way?
ripping
That's right.
ripping it out of there.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a plug inside of the capacitor that you plug it into itself essentially, and there's an LED light in there. It takes about 2 hours to completely discharge it, and then you if it's damaged and you're disposing of it, then you need to look for local or your local authorities and how they want that disposed.
Yep.
So it's going to vary from location to location. I would imagine the procedure in California is probably quite different than the procedure in
very
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
New
We
Jersey,
don't-
you just throw it in the water. That's it, like they do everything else.
we did learn that you can't throw it in the fire. Don't throw it in the
Don't
fire.
the fire,
Oh,
yeah.
turn it on
That was one of the warnings.
It's got cool it's got
I was
cool
just trying to
fireworks.
envision what body shop has a bonfire going. That just
But
tosses
it becomes
parts.
that Daffy Duck trick. I can only do this once.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that the reason it's in writing is at some point someone did
Absolutely.
it, and they had to come back and go, no, don't do that. So this is a real where this part is. If I'm working on a bumper, the fender, the reinforcement, the odds are this part's probably in the way. I'm going to be removing it either to finish the repair, or I'm going to be removing it because it's got damage to it and replacing it. But I can't just throw it out, so it does have a disposal requirements around it, individual to your shop or state or area or county or
Sometimes the dealers should know, or they have a process. I know Toyota does with their, hybrid electric batteries.
Right.
They have a process of coming and get them back.
That's probably a place to call the dealer.
Probably call the dealer, and that probably they'll have whatever's needed to be
Yeah.
done.
Just remember, there's a disposal and a handling fee for that is not included. So this is not part of hazardous waste, $3.50.
Why, Scotty can't beam it up and just
Yeah.
send it right to the dealer? Oh,
on the bottom of your estimate.
And one more thing that we forgot to mention on the IE loop as well. Thank you, Jake Rodenroth, for your help there as well.
Yeah, so we are channeling Jason. We were channeling Jake today, and we got some more information from Jake that we've brought out. Larry, you love my socks.
I have no
You
comments
do.
on it right now.
You do. We've got some more information from Jake that we're going to come out. But this is 2014, and you don't hear a lot of shops talk about this.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of this on estimates, so it makes us wonder what shops have been doing with this capacitor over the last 4 years that this has been on the road. And have we maybe put some in a landfill that shouldn't have been there? But the reason I want to delve into safety so much and some of the electronics that Mazda has is we looked yesterday, and the price of a Mazda, from the low end to the highest end,
The
fully bells
cheapest
and
one I
whistles.
found is $18,000, base price, sticker price online. And then I built the CX-9 with everything you possibly could buy, including all the accessories. The little net gate in the back, and the dog holder, and the grocery holder, all that stuff. And it came out to $48,000. So you're still talking an economical car, basically, to just below where luxury cars kind of start. So you're talking a fairly popular car for people to purchase. And it's as loaded. This Mazda 3, as we found out that we did some of the options that you could get on it, could be as loaded with safety features as a Mercedes-Benz E-Class that starts at $55,000 and goes up from there.
Yeah, so really quickly, in a Mazda 3, which is a top safety pick plus.
And Mazda's got 5 top safety pick pluses.
So when we have a top safety pick plus, that's usually a pretty good indicator that that vehicle's got a lot of technology on it, right, Jason?
And I believe to get the top safety pick plus, to get the plus part of it, you need to have automatic braking, which is available on the Mazda. Any vehicle that's got the Mazda iActive Sense equipment has the automatic braking on it.
So for roughly a $20,000 car, I'm going to get $100,000 in technology. So just this $20,000 Mazda 3, some of the things that we're going to have on this, from adaptive cruise control, adaptive headlights, pre-collision technology, lane departure, lane keep, traffic sign sense. What was that, Jason?
Yeah, traffic sign sense. It's actually looking, using the camera that's in the windshield area. It's looking at the speed, that's a speed limit sign. So if you get your cruise set at 55 and you're coming into town, who drives 55, but if you're coming into town, my dad does.
It was nice that you know.
So, sorry, Dad. So we're coming into town, you're going 55 miles an hour, you're going to a 35-mile-an-hour zone. It's going to sense that sign that says speed limit 35 and give you a warning that, hey, just might want to slow down a little bit here before you.
My $20,000 Mazda is reading the traffic signs.
Yep.
It also is telling you one way, so you can't turn
do
into
not
a one way.
enter, looking at do not enter signs. So,
Car won't let you turn
a
even
lot
when
of
you
that
want to.
stuff works off of not only the signs, it also works off of
The
navigation
telematics and that,
information and stuff like that, and it's all talking to each other. Now you got to remember, about 8 years ago, none of this stuff was really available in mass cars, mass-produced cars. It was on your Mercedes-Benz, your Audi A8, your BMW 7 Series, maybe some 5 Series fully loaded. This was eight years ago. This was the German stuff, and it's trickled into an $18,000 car now. I mean, I know there's some other cars out there that are like $12,000 you can get this stuff in.
Yeah.
And it's to keep us safer. There's still cars getting into accidents, but it's to limit injuries, limit accidents, keep cars safer, keep traffic moving. There's a lot of people involved in these, not only the insurance companies and coverage type people for injuries, not just the advocates for consumer safety, but think about the municipalities and governments that want cars moving along their highways faster, not having traffic issues. So you're going to see a lot of this stuff. I mean, I don't think we're too far off before. I always have that issue with autonomous vehicles because the roadways have to be all straight and you have to have a lot of signage there. But what I do see eventually is cars communicating with each other.
Yeah,
at least cars that can communicate will communicate with each other.
And they're there. The telematics between the cars is there. But for this purpose, I sometimes hear shops, I even hear insurers talk about how they really relate the value of the vehicle to the technology that can be on the vehicle and then to the repair procedures that would be required by the shop for that vehicle. So I've got stacks of emails that have come in for an adjuster going, might not in this case, it's only a Mazda 3. Do I really have to do all the scanning and calibration?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no different than, to correlate to people sitting in the stand, it's no different than a brand new S-Class Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
For $150,000.
Yeah. So let's talk about one of the things that's left off a lot. So in the course of collision repair, just for example, we mentioned the IE loop.
Yep.
That one of the things I have to do is disconnect the battery, obviously. And that would be for a front end impact that may only affect a fender and some plastic. I may now have to disconnect the battery. I'm not welding on the car, but I'm still disconnecting the battery. And then if I am welding on the car, I'm going to do what? Disconnect the battery.
Almost any time a car comes into your shop, after you do your diagnostic, pre-repair scans, measuring, whatever, and the car's ready to go into the shop to be repaired, while it's sitting there waiting for parts or whatever, the battery should be disconnected. When it gets inside the shop, it should be disconnected again while it's being worked on. And because you're going to disconnect and reconnect the battery a lot, some things, when you do read these manuals, do get affected by disconnecting the battery. And you can't use memory savers, you can't use surge protectors or anything like that. And this is why we actually found this stuff here. Jason was looking yesterday and found this.
Yeah. So if you disconnect the battery in a Mazda, you are automatically going to have to
do a steering sensor calibration when you reconnect the battery. So
yeah.
So wait, hang on, wait. Let me wrap my mind around this. I'm changing a bumper cover and a headlight.
Yep.
And I got to weld some pins on the fender to pull out some dents, and I'm going to disconnect the battery. I didn't touch steering, I didn't even take the wheel off the car. I turned the wheel left and right by starting it, turned the wheel all the way to the left, took out the clips, started the car again, turned it all the way to the right, took out the rest of the clips, and took out the splash shield. I didn't take the wheel off. And you're telling me I gotta just because I disconnected the battery, I gotta do the steering angle sensor?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And are we doing that just because we want to mess with alignment, or does that steering angle sensor actually drive a lot more of the components on the car?
Again, it's going to tie back to all these advanced safety systems, making sure that the sensor understands where it is in correlation with where the vehicle's going, because they're all interrelated.
Yeah, and Mazda has a great position on this. So Jake did a great job of highlighting this. If you don't do this on a car, so let's think about maybe how many Mazdas you've had in your shop in the last 3 years, because this isn't new, where you've had to disconnect the battery. Did you do this? And if you didn't do this, Mazda says an unexpected accident may occur.
Not good.
Wait a second. I got a little bit of a problem with that. Unexpected accident. Wait, versus the planned accident?
That's right.
I expected this accident.
Well, I think,
my wheels wobbling all over the place. I expected to get into a... No, I mean, that's what I call them accidents. They're not called on purposes.
Well, I think based on the systems that are involved, you may think that your crash avoidance is going to work, or you may think that something may just have what we call the catastrophic failure in the suspension and steering show last month.
The car may not react the way you expect it to.
Right.
Or the way you anticipated it to, because something's off on it. The car may not avoid a car in front of it because the steering angle sensor's off, and it thinks it's over. It thinks it's over here, and really it's over here, and it's going to run into the back of another car, and that's the problem that we have.
Yeah. So I see this a lot. I mean, as I go back and look at older estimates that have been uploaded and sit down with some of the shops that we work with over the years, when you look at what they've done to cars, and then you look at what wasn't done to the car before it left the shop, it's kind of a scary situation that this information's always been available to us. This isn't anything new. Had I read the manual, sit down with maybe the insurer, if that's who's, the bill payer at that point, and went, hey, if I don't do this, an unexpected accident may occur.
But what's even scarier is, this is what's even scarier. Now you take it to where you can have somebody else interfering in your business because, once again, shops are lazy. They don't want to have their own glass guy in the shop. They don't want to do their own glass work. They want to hire an outside company. And there's separate coverage for glass that you can go to any glass shop or have somebody drive up with a truck and do it in your yard, which is not the smartest thing in the world to do. And we found, with the help of Jason and Jake, this is what happens when you work on a glass and you're changing a windshield for a crack.
Yeah. So in the Mazda
procedure.
Yeah. So in the Mazda vehicles with iActive Sense, which has been around for a while, right? It's not a new component for them. There are some very specific requirements and procedures that go into when you remove and replace or remove and reuse a windshield. Now, there's a lot of times in collision repair that I'm taking glass out, right? Sometimes it's a roof, sometimes it's maybe just for good paint, or I'm working on a pillar or whatever. Windshields and glass, back glass, come out a lot in a collision repair center. And in the past, we as shops have really, like Larry said, we've not done a good job of supervising those people, right? We figure they're the glass experts, or we call SafeLight, or whoever that comes out, or my DRP makes me use SafeLight with a $20 bay fee or something crazy. What?
What did you just say?
My DRP makes me.
You're looking we're on camera. There's too many witnesses. Okay, that's it. Poke the bear.
No, the monkey. But glass in Mazda is very specific. Jason, walk us through just really quickly what's required in the windshield removal for Mazda.
Well, the first thing they're telling you is disconnect the battery again. So
so just to take
But I'm
glass
not welding.
out.
Yeah, right. Well,
But I'm not welding.
Yeah, I'm just taking glass out and I got to disconnect the battery. All right, so I want you guys to think about it
But
for
wait,
a minute.
what happens if we disconnect the battery?
Then I got to go through all of this re-sensor calibration and
For what though?
so that I don't have an unexpected accident.
Right. On what system?
All of them.
No. Remember we just talked about it. What? The steering angle set. Wait. So I'm really confused now, Jason. If I take a glass out that has nothing whatsoever, and I study some engineering stuff, has nothing to do with steering and suspension at all, and I gotta recalibrate the steering angle sensor because I cut a glass out of a car.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we? I hope we're stressing the point to everybody out there how crazy this has become that you have to read and understand. And you know what? It has nothing to do with the physical components. It's electronics.
Yep.
This is electrical systems.
Just glass. I mean, if we're real honest with ourselves and we think about over the last 2 or 3 years how many Mazdas have been in our facility, how many times glass has come in and out of those cars, specifically, let's think hail belt. So all of us that have had a lot of hail claims where I'm doing a hood roof trunk, right? How many of us were disconnecting the batteries before the windshield was going out and then making sure the battery was also still disconnected when the windshield was going in? Right? So the glass guy comes, maybe he takes the glass out and we go poop and we drive it into paint and do whatever we want to do. Are we disconnecting it again before it goes? And then as soon as we do, as soon as that battery's out, well, now I got a whole set of calibrations that I have to go through.
You know, maybe an analogy that works for everybody about this disconnecting the battery and doing all these electronic resets. You ever download a program that you needed for your computer for something? I don't know, maybe it open a picture, open a video or something, and then it says, do you want to restart your computer now? Otherwise, that new app or whatever you did doesn't work. Or like, you update your iPhone or your Android phone, you got to shut it off, restart, and you got to punch in your number, the fingerprint won't even work. That's the same thing here. It's the same type of thing. Once you disconnect the battery, some of this stuff has to be recalibrated. It's all electronic stuff. It's got to be restarted in a way.
So one other thing about windshield replacement for not just for Mazda, but there's a lot of OEs that have that. The entire windshield in itself becomes a sensing screen. Whether it's for Mazda, they say for rainfall or illumination. But it's sensing. We're using it as a lens, so to speak. And Mazda calls it a lens. So I've got a camera back here, right? And the windshield becomes the lens for that camera. So when you are removing the windshield, Mazda has some very specific safety precautions for how you cut and remove that windshield and the skill that needs to be taken. And then the inspection process to decide whether that is a reusable piece of glass or now you're going to have to buy a piece of glass because of how you took it out.
And when you're putting that replacement glass in, make sure you're getting the right glass because, again, because of the cameras, because of the rain sense, because of the headlights, because of the eye active sense, We need to make sure we're putting the proper glass in there for that particular vehicle, so let those systems function properly.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Otherwise, they won't, and you're going to wind up with a nightmare of trying to cut out a glass that didn't work to be able to redo everything again.
yeah. So if we didn't scare you enough about 4 months ago, I think it was November, we did the glass show, and we had, Mark was here, and we went through it and basically said, you better get a handle on your glass guy, or whoever you're subletting glass to if you're not doing it on your own. Well, this, again, just in one of the most popular cars on the road, something that your average collision shop's going to see probably 3 or 4 a month of in their facility, you better have a handle on your glass guy.
This isn't some $150,000 to $250,000 high-end ridiculous luxury car. This is an $18,000 car. That you have to follow the same thing you do for the $150,000, $200,000 car.
I got to treat the $18,000 count like the $100,000.
Exactly.
So,
And since we removed the glass, now
Yeah.
we got to calibrate the
I
IR
gotta,
sense as well.
yeah. So the one thing about once you take the battery out, it's going to trigger a ton of systems that have to be recalibrated. So not just the steering angle sensor. We talk about that one a lot because we feel like it's one of the most misdiagnosed, not performed. The Armada we had in here first part of last year, that was the first thing they had missed. And of course the customer had been driving with this signal on her dash for a year and a half going, well, the dealership tells me they don't know how to fix it. I'm like, really? Okay.
But we got it taken care of for them.
So once that comes off, I got a lot of stuff to do.
Sure.
So Jason, walk us through ADAS calibration for Mazda.
Yeah, so we recognize that, again, we got the camera in the windshield, we've got the adaptive cruise control module in the front. So again, the grille, minor collision, grille damage.
Just changing the bumper cover and the grill.
Cruise control sensors right behind there. There's a very specific procedure on calibrating that as well. A lot of warnings, how much space we need, kind of like other vehicle manufacturers.
How much space? I mean, so this was fascinating to me because I've got a fairly big shop here, but I would
26
feet. I must have clear space 26 feet in front of this vehicle.
Yep.
So even here, we've got everything spaced out because of the cameras and getting things around the benches and stuff. But even here, I don't think I have 26 feet of clear space. I don't think I can calibrate here.
Flat. Got to have a flat area.
Flat surface. Yeah.
Can't be
Well,
any
what is it?
angles on
What is it? 23 and a half feet, I think, is a full-size F-150 crew cab. So about 3 feet behind a crew cab, pickup truck. From that wall out to the front of it, add 3 feet in front of the car only. That's how much room it just needs for that. And then you need left, right, and rear.
Yep.
So you either got to move the car a couple of times or you got to leave it in that space and have a really big
And you need enough room on the side of the vehicle as well. So you need 4 feet of clearance on the side of the vehicle. You got to have the proper lighting, I'm sure. You got to have all the different factors that go into it.
Yeah, one of the other things that I liked about this was it goes through all of the different things that I need to do to the vehicle, such as verify tire pressure, make sure each tire is inflated to the proper weight.
Well, the first thing it says is if the vehicle and reflector are not set at different heights, different angles, accurate adjustment cannot be performed. So you have to be able to move some of these things around and have adjustments on them. So it just can't be at one. This is not the 1970s where, at the end of the day, when it got dark out, we put the car outside, or we shut the lights off in the shop and we lowered the garage door and we try to aim the headlights with a little screwdriver. This is no longer that.
Well, here's the nice thing of this.
I was so good at that, though.
For Mazda, the headlamps align themselves. So that is one
good.
Nice thing. So you don't have to worry about pulling the garage door down.
Yes, that works as well.
But as Jake mentions all the time as well, maintain the proper battery voltage before you do this procedure. You got to empty the vehicle, take the stuff out of the trunk, except for the spare
the vehicle
tire.
must be unloaded, tire pressure must be accurate. You've got to make sure. There are so many things that I've got to do that don't even involve plugging the scan tool in.
And you need a trickle charger or battery tendon to actually. You can't use it. You can't use a jumper box. You have to have a constant, feed to it.
Yeah. Now, you did bring something to our attention.
I did.
That Mazda was not completely against aftermarket
That's
parts
correct.
because they allow for.
So Mazda has a tripod with a level on it that you use for some of the calibration procedures. In the service information, they will allow you to use an aftermarket tripod as long as it has a level on it. So
there you go.
There's some allowance for some aftermarket parts from Mazda.
So I can take 3 sticks, tape them together, and then put a Home Depot level on top of it.
You have to have a level.
That's my frame machine.
That's right. That's right.
Wasn't that what was on that Ford truck that got posted
Yes, it was
online?
that Ford truck. Yes.
Oh my
God.
Okay.
I got a level on it. The Home Depot special.
But yeah, so now I got to have 26 feet. I got to have the vehicle unloaded. I've got to have the tire pressure perfect. I've got to be on this level surface, no obstructions, 26 feet between me and the truck and the target, or the vehicle and the target. I've got to have the target and a radar cup on a tripod. It's got to be balanced and level as well. Is that included?
No.
No.
None of that
That
is.
seems like an hour or so worth of work right there just to
Probably
get
like
the
a
vehicle.
true insurance person.
Yeah.
That's like an hour worth of work.
Yeah, well, you can round it up, right?
You can round it
You can round it up to 5 if you want to. But that's a lot of work just to get the vehicle. And I haven't plugged the scan tool in yet, and I haven't started yet.
And you haven't positioned the level
Yeah.
yet.
Now I got to get the radar cup in the
But
right
at least
place.
you can use it for the front and for the rear. So you can dual purpose level it as well.
Yeah, so this is a great picture from Jake and the Aztec team. They have mobile diagnostic units, so if you're a shop and they happen to have a mobile unit in your city, if you don't want to do all this or you don't want to send it to a dealer, Aztec has some mobile solutions for you. But so Jake and Aztec provided this for us to look at, and that's the tripod and the target, and it's all measured out on a level surface, and that's a lot of space in the shop.
And then plug the scan tool in and go through the procedure, which says, again, first thing, make sure there aren't any DTCs, and then before you do the calibration.
And that's a great point, Jason, because even if I can, and I'm going to fully admit, there's no way I'd get all this done. And there's no way I'd know if it was level, and I would be throwing things.
Toast.
I can make ice though.
You can make ice, but you can't make toast.
But even if a shop gets all this done, I still have to have. It's more than just the tool. There has to be a trained person,
absolutely,
with the knowledge to know how to
read it. It's still a little difficult because this is not stuff you're used to doing. This is completely off what you used to kind of do. Even if some dealers haven't been through training on this.
Yeah,
it's
my
a little bit different.
detailer's not going to do this pre-delivery.
Right.
So a great thing.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, we just thought this was kind of an interesting caution as well. So I don't know why you would, but you can't have you need the ignition on, but you can't have the vehicle running. The vehicle can't be running when you're doing the calibration of the adaptive cruise control because they don't want that engine shake is going to cause some disruption of the adaptive cruise control. So a very specific warning just not to do that.
Right. Now, if you are a very ambitious shop, kind of like Toyota, Mazda gives you the options of printing and making your own targets. You don't have to buy, like, what is it, Audi? Some of the Audi targets are like $40,000 a target or whatever.
Around, like 8 to 16, depending on what you need and stuff.
Yeah.
They can be very expensive, but by the time you're done buying everything, probably $40,000 into it.
So,
but now Mazda gives us the option of printing and making our own.
So Mazda on the Mazda website for the camera aiming procedure, they have a template on their website where you can print off a white square and a black square. Now you need to make sure they're sized properly. So that's one challenge that we've run across. If you just automatically print it, it may be the wrong size. So we actually we did this on a Toyota vehicle, not a Mazda vehicle, but we printed it off, and it was too big. We ended up having like 77% size to get the proper dimensions on it. But you print off three white 5x5 pieces and 3 black 5x5 pieces, and then you tape them together.
Make sure you put the tape
on
the
back.
On the back so that it can adhere properly, the pressure-sensitive adhesive. And because if you put it on the front, it's not going to stick to anything else. It'll stick to your hand. I guess they realize we don't have common sense, I guess.
But they don't want that, and they also want the tape to be shown on when you're taping the actual targets together because of the reflectivity.
Yep. That's the biggest thing.
I thought they gave us a little too much credit because they were like the cellophane tape, and I'm like, I don't know any shop that's got packing tape. I mean, we're going straight to the masking tape on that part and making this work. So, yeah.
So we're going to tape we're going to take our 3x3 and our 3x3, and then we're going to put it on a board.
Then I'm going to get in construction mode.
A non-reflective wooden board. A non-reflective wooden board.
Yeah, because boards are usually reflective.
So, and then we're going to set the proper height, put it out in front of the vehicle in the proper distance, hook our scan tool up, make sure there aren't any DTCs, and then go through the calibration procedure.
Yeah.
Now, when you change the bumper, the time to build this construction stuff and the scaffolding and stuff, that's all included, right?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, no. That's what I mean. The first time somebody told me we're not paying to take the car to the dealer, I'd be like, okay,
no problem.
Here, hold my drink.
12
hours of construction later, I've got your car calibrated.
Now this is for the static test, obviously, but they do also have a dynamic test.
Yeah,
so if you're not in New York City and you can take the vehicle on a road and get up to the proper speed, you can also do a dynamic calibration for it.
And that's one of the things that shops, when we talked about this yesterday, that we kind of want to drive home, doing a dynamic test or a static test, or what we used to call the road test. Now let's face it, before we deliver a car, we should be doing a road test. Most shops don't because they just don't have the time or the liability or whatever involved. But we drive the car around the block, right? We just make sure the wheels stay tight.
Not enough.
We make sure that nothing fell off of the car. But for these type of dynamic testings, I'm going to be taking the vehicle on maybe a 20 or a 30-minute drive around town.
Yeah, so the lane keep assist and the lane departure warning, or lane keep is not active until you're over 37 or 38 miles per hour on the Mazda vehicle that we're looking at. So you need to get the vehicle up to that speed so that that camera, as you're going through the calibration procedure, can see the lines on the road and understand where it's going. And it's not going to be a report out on the scan tool from what we found. There are going to be different bulbs that are going to be illuminated on the dash that will be blinking, and when they stop blinking, then the calibration procedure is done.
And so
And this is important for people to realize this. And a lot of times you need two people should be safety, but also go back to legal aspects. Let's say you're going to do this. Make sure your paperwork that you have the customer sign actually gives you some sort of authorization from the customer to drive their vehicle for testing purposes or to and from a dealership, or even in some cases you might have to take the car home overnight to one of the techs or the owner of the shop. Hey, you know, I'm going to take this car home tonight. It's 35 miles for me to drive home. I know it's 7, 8 o'clock at night. I got plenty of, clear, free, open area that I can drive 38, 40 miles an hour for, a couple of miles so the car can really relearn it. I'll drive it in the next day. I'll get a good feel for it. So you got to make sure your paperwork's right that way, that you are covered that way under your own policy.
And speaking of the customer as well, another thing that we talked about yesterday, we thought about is, so just like the radio presets, we always want to make sure the customers come back and their radios aren't preset, they
get annoyed.
So another thing with a lot of these advanced driver assistance systems is there's going to be different levels of sensitivity. There's going to be different levels of warning and notification, and maybe a quiet beep versus a loud beep, and maybe a moderate staking of the steering wheel versus maybe a little bit more aggressive shaking of the steering wheel. A lot of these adaptive cruise control and the collision braking are going to have sensitivity. Do you want a high sensitivity so the vehicle is farther out in front of you, it's going to give you a warning? Do you want a low sensitivity so that you got to be right next to that vehicle before it starts warning? So again, from a customer satisfaction standpoint, it would be important to know where the customer had those each set up on there, or if they even had them on. If they didn't want their lane departure warning system on, or adaptive cruise control, like you were talking about, you're not a big fan of the lane keep assist. If your car comes in, I want to make sure that if it's disabled, I'm not going to give it back to you.
I have a rental right now. I was talking about yesterday with Jason that it's a QX80 Infiniti, the big truck, and it's got the lane departure, lane keep assist. And New York, because their roadways are all being worked on all the time, and the lanes are not as wide, they're curving, they're doing this, they're doing that, it's very annoying that it's constantly beeping. And because the lanes aren't wide enough, any little deviation of left to right, it's beeping constantly, versus when I drove upstate with the truck, there was no problem with it because the lanes are a little bit wider. So maybe in the city, I would probably shut off my lane keep, but I'd want my Distronic or pre-collision, pre-safe distance on, because of all the stop and go traffic. You feel the gas pedal and the braking and stuff like that on it automatically. So I would probably shut that lane keep off and keep my blind spot to monitor on. That's why you see most of these systems do have independently they can be shut off because of that annoyance.
So we're going to want to make sure that we maybe have to change our check-in procedure based on technology. Mazda does allow us to save a lot of presets, but if the customer brings it in with the off, I still need to make sure it works before they give it back.
Correct.
And then turn it back off again if I want to, meet their needs or whatever. But when we're starting to think about active resets and calibrations, so those long drives on the car, what Larry said, it's time to visit with your insurance company about your garage keeper's liability, about
talk to your lawyer,
making sure that you have a permission form, that the customer understands that you are going to be driving their vehicle around town. They may see, hey, that's my car. Why is that guy in my car?
There's something wrong with you saying, hey, I got to go pick up lunch for the shop. Let me take the car, I'll take it on the test drive while I'm going. Somebody's out to lunch, that's in the area, and see, what's my car doing at the pizzeria? And flipping out. It's like, I had to go pick up pizza, I'm test driving the car,
And then also, are you covered for that? And then are you compensating for that? So if you suddenly meet with your insurance company and they now know, hey, there's more of a risk, you're going to be on the road a lot more, you're going to have employees in the cars, that increases workers' compensation, that increases, liability exposure, we're going to raise your premium. Well, then when you are estimating those cars and you reach that point in the estimators, this is your responsibility, when you get to that calibration portion, if there's road testing or whatever's involved, you're going to have to make sure that you're estimating and compensating yourself for that properly so that you can cover those added expenses that are out there. Worst case scenario, you take a customer's car on a drive and you're 30 miles outside of town and it wrecks and it totals, and you call your insurance company and they go, oh, we didn't have any coverage for you to be driving customers' cars.
Right.
those cars were covered if they're on the premises, which a lot of garage keepers will say cars are covered on the premises but not off. So there's a lot of legalities there that you need to think
Your
of.
big problem is the shops have to realize is we don't design them, we don't make them, we don't sell them, we didn't buy them, we don't insure them, we didn't come out with premiums, we certainly didn't put gas in it, and we definitely didn't wreck it.
Yeah.
But we fixed them. And there's a book, as you can see here, there's a book on how to fix them. And I have to follow those procedures. Just because you think it's ridiculous, or just because you think, oh, it's going to cost too much money, that's not my problem. I didn't wreck it. I have to fix it. I open a book and it tells me how to do it. It's no different than you trying to make lasagna or meatloaf. There's a recipe to follow.
Yeah.
If you don't follow the recipe, it's not going to be meatloaf when you're done with it. It might just be a big, huge burger.
I got a great recipe for ice later. I'll share it with you.
Yes, I want to see your recipe for ice.
That's
That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
Thank God you got the recipe for toast.
It's working out well for me. But you know, when I grew up in this business my entire life, my dad used to say that the only two things he needed to do his business was a good jobber to bring him paint and a good tow truck to bring him cars. But now, if I'm going to be in
cars
this,
were forgiving back then.
yeah, but if I'm going to be in this business, if I'm a shop, I better have a good lawyer. I better have a good insurance company.
But you
and then I'm
also
still
have to
going to
be,
need a tow truck and a jobber.
You have to be a little bit in tune with not only how to read, be literate, because there's a lot of stuff to read. You have to be somewhat up on what the real laws are and regulations in your state, what your insurance coverages are. And look, you got to be in a way almost like a parrot engineer. You have to kind of understand engineering aspects. And now we're adding electrical engineering to it too.
Yeah.
So not just mechanical, but electrical engineering, that you got to kind of understand this stuff. And guess what? Now you have to be kind of like when you call up Dell, you know, or HP, and you get, you know, the help of the, hello, how you doing? And now you got to be like one of those guys that, like, you know, I'm from India and I know how to work on computers because they're the only ones who seem to know what they're doing with computers. Now you got to understand that stuff too.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult now in a shop. You got to be faceted with your knowledge on these cars. This is no longer, I'm a real body man, I can sculpt this, I can fix this, I can fix that. I mean, Jesse James is a great welder. Jesse James is a great fabricator. So's Chip Foose. And Chip Foose told us in conversation one time, I know what I'm doing with these new cars. I don't fix that stuff. You know, fenders, doors, metal stuff, great, fantastic. Computers, I ain't got a clue. Because that's not their aspect of it. And that's because they do custom work. But us on this side, we don't do custom work. We do cars that have to be fixed. And a lot of times, I know from guys we've talked to, and I know you talked about this, we have shops that are complaining. I send it to the dealer, and the dealer
Said no. Yep.
doesn't know what they're doing.
Yep.
I have to actually print the procedure from their website, bring it to them, and go, here. And they're like, oh, we got one of those. It's in the back. We had to buy it.
Yeah.
You're the one who was asking me to do this.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the scariest things. So just to, you know, we're gonna wrap Mazda up. We got next month coming with a completely different show. Please, if you have any questions or anything around a particular OE that you want to submit, get it to us. If there's one thing we want you to take away for today from the Mazda is that it is one of the most popular vehicles sold in America. There's a lot of them on the road. It has a great price point for a lot of people, but it is full of technology, just like a $100,000 car. So because they vary by model, two 2017s in the same Mazda lineup with the same part, a front rail, two completely different replacement procedures, it is imperative that every time a Mazda hits your facility that you are accessing the OEM repair information and verifying all procedures that you do to it, and that you are checking on when that battery comes out, because with Mazda, it looks like it comes out almost all the time, and that when it does come out, you're going to have a lot of calibration and scanning requirements to get through on that. Real quickly, just the Refinish Solutions Group has made available some free season passes to the OE show. So if you have not found that link on our Facebook page and gone and registered for your pass for the rest of 2018, you're going to want to do that before they run out. They have a limited number of season tickets available for you. It's a great way to get OE education all year long on behalf of them. So if you are a user of any of the products out of the Refinish Solutions Group, be sure to, when you see your rep, to say thank you for making education available to all the repairers across the country. And we will see you next month on OEM Live.